Good evening, and welcome to Cozy Sleep Time. Get comfortable and take a slow breath. Let your body relax more and more. Tonight's story is about the migration. Simply listen or let your mind drift. There is no need to focus. Let the quiet story begin. Across the surface of the earth, a quiet and constant movement unfolds. It happens in the skies, through the oceans, and across vast stretches of land. This movement is migration, one of the most remarkable phenomena in the natural world. Migration is the seasonal journey undertaken by countless species, a journey driven by the most fundamental needs of life itself. At its heart, migration is a response to change, a way for animals to find the resources they need to survive and to continue their lineage. The primary drivers of these great journeys are the shifting seasons, the search for food, and the urge to breed. The turning of the seasons creates a rhythm of abundance and scarcity. As winter approaches in the northern hemisphere, temperatures drop, daylight fades, and the landscape becomes harsh and unyielding. Food sources that were once plentiful, such as insects, nectar, fruits, and seeds, disappear or become dormant. For many animals, the only way to survive is to leave. They travel to warmer regions where food remains available. When spring returns, the north awakens once more. The sun grows stronger, plants bloom, and insects emerge in vast numbers. Animals then journey back to take advantage of this seasonal explosion of life. This to and fro movement, timed with exquisite precision, allows species to live in the best possible conditions for each part of the year. The search for food is perhaps the most immediate and powerful driver of migration. A herd of grazing animals must follow the rains to find fresh grass. A whale travels thousands of miles to reach krill-rich feeding grounds in polar waters. A bird leaves its winter home because the supply of berries or insects has run dry. These journeys are not leisurely wanderings. They are purposeful and often urgent, dictated by the need to find enough energy to survive. The availability of food dictates the timing and direction of travel, creating invisible pathways that animals have followed for millennia. Equally powerful is the instinct to breed. Many animals migrate to specific locations to give birth or lay their eggs. These places are chosen because they offer safety from predators, favorable temperatures, or an abundant food supply for newborns. Sea turtles return to the very same beaches where they hatched, digging nests in the warm sand. Salmon fight their way upstream to the gravel beds of their birth. Birds travel thousands of miles to reach nesting grounds where the long summer days provide endless hours for feeding their young. By making these difficult journeys, animals give their offspring the best possible start in life. Migration takes countless forms. Some journeys are epic, spanning continents and oceans, covering tens of thousands of miles. Others are more modest, a vertical move down a mountainside as winter sets in, or a short journey to a nearby wetland. But all migrations share a common thread. They are a response to the Earth's cycles. The tilt of the planet, the orbit of the sun, and the changing seasons create a world of constant flux. Migration is nature's way of flowing with this change, of moving not against the current of the seasons, but with it. It is a testament to the adaptability and resilience of life, a reminder that the natural world is never still, always in motion, always finding a way. There is perhaps no greater spectacle of migration than the movement of birds across the skies. Each year, billions of birds take to the air, traveling between breeding grounds and wintering areas in a journey that spans the globe. These journeys follow ancient highways known as flyways, invisible corridors in the sky that birds have used for countless generations. A flyway is not a single, narrow path, but a broad route that encompasses many different paths, all leading in the same general direction. They are shaped by geography, following coastlines, mountain ranges, river valleys, and chains of islands. The major flyways of the world connect the Arctic with the tropics, linking the far north to the distant south. In the Americas, the four main flyways are the Atlantic, the Mississippi, the Central, and the Pacific. These routes funnel birds from their breeding grounds in the Canadian Arctic and Alaska down to wintering areas in the southern United States, Central America, and South America. Along these routes, birds depend on a network of vital stopover sites, places where they can rest and refuel. These may be wetlands, marshes, forests, or shorelines. A single stopover site might host millions of birds during the peak of migration. The loss of even one of these sites can have a devastating effect on an entire species. The journeys these birds undertake are almost unbelievable in their scale. The Arctic tern holds the record for the longest migration of any animal on Earth. This small seabird travels from its breeding grounds in the Arctic to the Antarctic and back again each year, a round trip of roughly 44,000 miles. It experiences 2 summers each year, following the sun from one pole to the other. The bar-tailed godwit makes one of the longest non-stop flights of any bird. It travels from Alaska to New Zealand without landing, a journey of over 7,000 miles across the open Pacific Ocean. To accomplish this feat, the godwit doubles its body weight before departure, storing fat as fuel for the marathon flight. Birds use a remarkable array of navigational tools to find their way. They read the position of the sun and the stars. They sense the Earth's magnetic field through tiny particles of magnetite in their heads, or perhaps through specialized proteins in their eyes that allow them to see magnetic fields. They follow visual landmarks such as rivers and coastlines. They may even use their sense of smell. Young birds on their first migration often fly with more experienced adults, learning the route. But many species migrate alone, guided by an instinct that scientists are only beginning to understand. The timing of bird migration is exquisitely tuned to the seasons. Birds arrive on their breeding grounds just as the flush of spring insects and plant growth provides abundant food for their chicks. They depart before winter makes survival impossible. This timing is triggered by changes in day length, which is a reliable and unchanging signal, unlike weather, which can be unpredictable. As the days grow shorter in late summer, birds become restless, a state known as Zugunruhe, or migratory restlessness. Their bodies change, storing fat, and their feathers are replaced with fresh, strong flight feathers. They are preparing for the great journey ahead, a journey written into their very DNA. Beneath the surface of the world's oceans, an equally vast migration takes place, hidden from our view. The oceans are fluid and interconnected, offering no barriers to travel, and many of their inhabitants undertake extraordinary journeys across entire ocean basins. These migrations are driven by the same forces that drive migration on land: the search for food, the need to breed, and the changing seasons. But in the deep blue world of the sea, the scale is different, and the journeys are often longer and more mysterious. The great whales are among the most far-traveled migrants on Earth. Humpback whales, gray whales, and right whales all undertake annual migrations that span thousands of miles. They feed in the cold, productive waters of the polar regions, where the summer sun fuels an explosion of plankton and krill. Here, they spend the summer months gorging themselves, building up thick layers of blubber. As winter approaches and the polar seas grow dark and icy, the whales begin their long journey toward the equator. They travel to warm tropical waters where they give birth to their calves. These tropical waters are not rich in food, but they are safe. The warm water helps newborn calves, which have little blubber, to survive. The mothers live off their fat reserves for months, nursing their young until they are strong enough to make the return journey to the feeding grounds. Sea turtles are perhaps the most mysterious of ocean migrants. They spend most of their lives alone, drifting in the open ocean, but when it is time to lay eggs, they embark on incredible journeys back to the very beaches where they were born. A female loggerhead turtle may travel thousands of miles across the Pacific or Atlantic Ocean, navigating with a precision that still amazes scientists. She uses the Earth's magnetic field as a map, imprinting on the magnetic signature of her natal beach. Years later, she can find her way back to that same stretch of sand. She crawls ashore under the cover of darkness, digs a nest, and lays her eggs before returning to the sea. The hatchlings that emerge weeks later face their own perilous journey, scrambling to the water and beginning a life of drift and travel. Many species of fish also migrate, often on a massive scale. Tuna are powerful, streamlined fish that cross entire oceans in search of food and spawning grounds. Bluefin tuna can cross the Atlantic in a matter of weeks, diving to great depths and traveling at remarkable speeds. Salmon are famous for their upstream migrations from the ocean into the freshwater rivers and streams where they were born. They fight against currents, leap over waterfalls, and navigate through rapids, driven by an overpowering instinct to spawn. After spawning, many Pacific salmon die, their bodies providing nutrients to the forest ecosystem. The young salmon that hatch will eventually make their way to the ocean, only to return years later to repeat the cycle. These ocean migrations are not random wanderings. They are tightly choreographed movements tied to ocean currents, water temperature, and the availability of prey. The oceans are vast and seemingly empty, but they are crisscrossed with invisible pathways, routes that have been followed for millions of years. In the quiet depths, life moves in a constant, patient flow, a migration as grand and essential as any on Earth. Not all migrations involve great size or strength. Some of the most astonishing journeys are made by the smallest of creatures, the insects. Weighing less than a leaf, with bodies so delicate that a raindrop can be a danger, insects nonetheless undertake migrations that rival those of birds and whales in their scale and complexity. The most famous of these is the migration of the monarch butterfly, a journey that spans generations and crosses an entire continent. Each autumn, millions of monarch butterflies from across eastern North America begin a remarkable journey. They fly south toward the mountains of central Mexico. No single butterfly makes the round trip. Instead, the migration is a multi-generational cycle. The butterflies that leave the north in the fall are part of a special generation called the Methuselah generation. Unlike their parents, who lived only a few weeks, these monarchs live for several months. They do not breed on the journey south. Their only purpose is to travel. They fly during the day, gliding on warm air currents, and rest at night, clustering together in trees. They may travel up to 3,000 miles, navigating by the sun and using some internal compass that scientists are still working to fully understand. When they arrive in the Oyamel fir forests of Michoacán and the state of Mexico, they gather by the millions. The trees are blanketed with butterflies, their orange and black wings covering the branches so thickly that the boughs bend under their weight. Here, in the cool, moist mountain air, they spend the winter in a state of reduced activity, living off the fat stores they built up during their journey. In the spring, as the days grow longer, they begin to stir, they mate, and then they begin the journey north. These butterflies lay their eggs on milkweed plants in the southern United States and then die. Their offspring continue the journey north, hatching, feeding, and flying further. It takes 3 or 4 generations of butterflies to repopulate the northern part of the range. The last generation of the summer, the Methuselah generation, is born, and the cycle begins again. Other insects also undertake impressive migrations. The globe skimmer dragonfly, a species found across the world, makes a multi-generational migration across the Indian Ocean. These dragonflies ride the seasonal monsoon winds, traveling from India to East Africa and back again, a round trip of over 10,000 miles. They breed in temporary rainwater pools that form with the monsoon rains, and their entire life cycle is synchronized with the wind patterns that carry them across the ocean. Ladybugs, or ladybird beetles, also migrate in large numbers. In many parts of the world, they gather in huge aggregations on mountaintops or in valleys, often returning to the same sites year after year. These gatherings are sometimes so large that they can be seen on weather radar. The insects huddle together for protection during the winter, and in the spring, they disperse across the landscape to feed on aphids. The migration of insects is a reminder that size is no measure of determination. These tiny creatures, driven by instinct, traverse continents and oceans, riding the wind and following the sun. Their journeys are delicate and ephemeral, yet they have been happening for millions of years, an invisible river of life flowing across the face of the earth. Across the great plains and grasslands of the world, some of the most dramatic migrations take place on land. These are the movements of hooved mammals, the herds of Africa and the Arctic, whose thundering footsteps have shaped ecosystems for millennia. Land animal migrations are often driven by the search for fresh grazing and water, following the rhythm of seasonal rains. They are journeys of survival, undertaken by vast numbers of animals moving as one. The most famous land migration is that of the wildebeest in the Serengeti ecosystem of East Africa. Each year, more than 1 million wildebeest, joined by hundreds of thousands of zebras and gazelles, embark on a circular journey across Tanzania and Kenya. They follow the rains, moving from the short grass plains of the southern Serengeti, where they give birth to their calves in a synchronized burst of life, to the woodlands and river crossings of the northern Serengeti and the Masai Mara. The journey is not a simple there and back movement. It is a constant year-round trek, always in search of fresh grass and water. The herds move in a vast, swirling mass, their hooves pounding the earth. They must cross crocodile-filled rivers, evade lions and hyenas, and navigate through a landscape that changes from green to brown with the seasons. The river crossings are the most perilous part of the journey. The wildebeest gather on the banks, hesitant and nervous. Then some unseen signal passes through the herd, and they surge forward, a flood of bodies plunging into the water. The crossings are chaotic and dangerous. Animals are trampled, drowned, or taken by crocodiles. But for the herd as a whole, the crossing is necessary. On the other side lies fresh grazing. This migration is not just a spectacle, it is a vital ecological process. The movement of the herds fertilizes the soil, spreads seeds, and supports a complex web of predators and scavengers. In the far north of North America, the caribou undertake their own great migration. Caribou, known as reindeer in Europe and Asia, live in the Arctic and subarctic. Their migration is one of the longest of any land mammal. Some herds travel over 3,000 miles in a year, moving from their winter ranges in the boreal forests to their calving grounds on the open tundra. The caribou move north in the spring, following the retreating snow, They time their arrival on the calving grounds so that their calves are born just as the tundra is greening. The vast, open landscape offers some protection from predators, and the abundance of fresh vegetation provides rich food for the nursing mothers. The migration of the caribou is a difficult and dangerous journey. They must cross swollen rivers, navigate through deep snow, and endure swarms of biting insects. Wolves follow the herds, picking off the weak and the young. But the caribou are built for travel. Their wide, concave hooves act like snowshoes in winter and like paddles when swimming. They have a thick, warm coat that insulates them against the brutal Arctic cold. Migration on land is a collective enterprise. The safety of the individual lies in the movement of the herd. Together, they follow ancient routes worn into the earth by generations of hooves before them. It is a living tradition, passed not through teaching, but through instinct. The herds move with the seasons, an endless patient cycle of departure and return, a rhythm as old as the grasslands themselves. When we step back and look at migration as a whole, a deeper pattern begins to emerge. Migration is not simply a collection of individual journeys. It is a fundamental rhythm of life on Earth, a pulse that beats across the planet in time with the seasons. This rhythm is driven by instinct, an inner knowing that guides animals to move at precisely the right time, along precisely the right route toward precisely the right destination. It is a form of wisdom that does not require learning or memory, a knowledge that is written into the fabric of life itself. The instinct to migrate is one of the most powerful forces in nature. It overrides hunger, fatigue, and fear. A bird confined to a cage during migration season will flutter against the bars, driven by an inexplicable restlessness. A salmon will throw itself against a waterfall, tearing its body to reach its spawning grounds. A tiny butterfly will fly thousands of miles to a forest it has never seen. This instinct is not a conscious decision. It is a deep biological imperative, triggered by changes in day length, temperature, and other environmental cues. The animal does not choose to migrate, it is compelled to do so. The precision of migration is astonishing. Animals arrive at their destinations with a timing that seems almost magical. The swallows return to Capistrano on the same day each year. The shorebirds appear on a particular mudflat on a particular week. This timing is essential. If an animal arrives too early, the food may not be available. If it arrives too late, the breeding season may be over. The margin for error is often very small, and yet, year after year, the timing holds. This is not magic, but the result of an exquisitely tuned biological clock synchronized with the turning of the earth. Migration also reveals the deep interconnectedness of life. The journey of one species affects many others. The arrival of migrating birds triggers the emergence of insects. The movement of grazing herds fertilizes the soil. The death of spawning salmon feeds the forest. Each migration is a thread in a vast web of life, connecting distant places and different species. The loss of a migration route, a stopover site, or a breeding ground can send ripples through the entire ecosystem. Today, many migrations are under threat. Climate change is altering the timing of seasons, throwing off the careful synchronization between migration and food availability. Habitat loss is destroying the stopover sites and breeding grounds that migrating animals depend on. Light pollution confuses birds that navigate by the stars. Dams block the path of salmon. Roads fragment the routes of caribou. Yet, even in the face of these challenges, the instinct to migrate persists. Animals continue to make their journeys, adapting where they can, pushing forward against the obstacles. As we consider the great rhythm of migration, we find a quiet lesson. It is a reminder that the world is not static, but constantly in motion. The seasons turn, the earth spins, and life flows in response. Migration is an act of faith, a trust in the cycle of the seasons, a belief that the journey, however difficult, will lead to a place of safety and abundance. In the quiet of the night, above us and below us, the migration continues. Birds pass overhead in the darkness, whales swim through the deep, insects drift on the wind. The great rhythm plays on, steady and constant, as it has for millions of years. As our story ends, let the quiet ideas settle softly. Your body can continue to relax, breathing slow and steady. If sleep is near, let it arrive naturally. Thank you for spending this moment here on Cozy Sleep Time. Return anytime for another peaceful journey. Good night.